So let's take a look at the MTSBOA Cycle 1, 7th and 8th grade jazz guitar swing etude. It's called Wound Up. We're going to start by looking at the chord voicings. Now, several of the chords in this can be played with one voicing and a couple of slight variations. And that is our dominant 7 with the root on the 5th string voicing. Now, this is pretty simple. We can play these chords with just 3 notes. So we're going to start with the F7 chord in measure 11. The root of that chord is F. We can find that on the 8th fret of your A string. The 3rd of that chord is A, which is the 7th fret on your D string. And then the 7th of the chord is E flat, which is the 8th fret on your G string. Root, 3rd, 7th. And you can play that chord with just those 3 strings. If you want, you can add the 5th of the chord, which is C, right up there on the 8th fret of your 1st string. But it is perfectly acceptable just to play root, 3rd, 7th. So that's your F7 chord. We can slide that down 2 frets to E flat and use the same shape for your E flat 7 chord, which is on count 3 of measure 15. So the notes in that chord are root, E flat, 3rd, G, 7th, D flat. Your D7 chord in measure 12, second half of the bar, is just a fret lower than that. Same shape. Root, D, 3rd, F sharp, 7th, C. So those 3 chords are going to use the same shape. F7, E flat 7, D7. So then the C dominant 9 chord in measure 13, you're going to take this shape and you're going to slide it down to the 3rd fret. C, root, E 3rd, B flat 7th, and the 9th, you're going to drop your 4th finger in on the 3rd fret of your B string, which is D. So root, 3rd, 7th, 9th, C, E, B flat, D. That's your C dominant 9 chord. Based on the same shape, you're just adding a 4th note, which is the 9th of the chord. Now, the last chord that is a variation on that shape is in measure 20. That's your E flat 7 sharp 9. So we're going to go back to this E flat 7 voicing. E flat, G, D flat. Now, in the dominant 9 chord, the 9th is right here in the same fret as your root and your 7th. But this is an E flat 7 sharp 9. We know that if we sharp that 9th, we raise it up a half step. So you're going to slide that pinky up here to the F sharp. So that chord is root, 3rd, 7th, sharp 9, or E flat, G, D flat, F sharp. So almost all of the chords in this are based on that one little 3-note voicing. Now there's 2 chords we haven't looked at yet. The A minor 7 chord in measure 12, first half of the bar. If you play a lot of rock music, you've probably seen this bar chord voicing for your A minor 7, where you drop in the ring finger 2 frets up from the bar on your 5th string. Beautiful sounding chord, but we don't want all of those notes in there, and we really don't want to double the 5th of the chord here. So the E, we don't ever want to double that. In fact, a lot of times we'll leave that note out. If you noticed in that other chord voicing, we didn't really use the 5th of the chord. We definitely don't ever want to double that note. That's the least important note of all these chords. It's kind of expendable. So the voicing that is most commonly used is the root on the 6th string. So here's our A on the 5th fret of the 6th string, and I'm going to play that with my 2nd finger. And a lot of people will bar the D, G, B, and E strings also in the 5th fret. I've got fairly small hands, and I'm sure a lot of 7th and 8th graders do as well, so I don't like barring that chord with just my ring finger. I drop my 4th finger in there as well. So I am barring the 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st strings with those two fingers, and I still drop my second finger down on the root. You want to mute that A string with the fleshy part of your ring finger, so you're really only playing the 6th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st strings. The notes in that chord are A, G, C, E, A. Root, 7th, 3rd, 5th, root. Notice we're not doubling the 5th. The only note doubled is the root. So there's your minor 7 voicing with the root on the 6th string. And then there's one more chord we haven't looked at, which is the B flat 7. Just like our A minor 7, a lot of you probably know this bar chord shape for your dominant 7th chord. Again, nothing wrong with that chord, but in this context, we want to avoid it because it, again, is doubling that 5th of the chord. The F is in there twice. So there's a couple of voicings we can use. The one that I find the fastest it seems to fit where the other voicings are for me, is just playing the top 4 strings on this. So we're still going to bar in the 6th fret, but I'm going to take my second finger and I'm going to drop that down on the 7th fret on the G string. So we have A flat, D, F, B flat, or 7th, 3rd, 5th, root. Only 4 strings, but it has each note of the chord accounted for once. The other voicing you can use is to keep the root down here on the 6th string. This one may take a little more practice for young guitar players' hands, but I'm going to show you this voicing anyway because it's fairly common. You're going to play the root, the B flat on the 6th fret of your low E with the 1st finger. The 7th you're going to play also in the 6th fret with your 2nd finger, but that's on the D string. So B flat, A flat, root 7th. The 3rd you're going to play in the 8th fret of your B string, G string, sorry. That's your D, B flat, A flat, D. And the 5th you're going to drop your ring finger in on the 6th fret of your B string for the F. Again, we have all 4 notes of that chord. That hand position may take a little more practice for you to be able to grab that shape quickly, but it can be done. I see a lot of guitar players use this voicing. You can also just do a 3-note voicing there with the root on B flat, the 7th on the D string, same fret, which is your A flat, and then your 4th finger on the D right there on your G string. So just like this 7th chord, 3 notes, and they're all there. So you have some variations on that B flat 7. When I do the playthrough in a few minutes, you're going to see me use that voicing up here that I showed you with the bar on the 6th, and then 2nd finger dropped in on that D on your G string. Those are the chords for wound up. So let's take a look at the melody. So we're in F major, but we do see E flat written in as an accidental throughout. So instead of just a straight up F major scale, we're going to use an F mixolydian mode here. So I'm going to play it in this position, which is for me the most comfortable place to play it. You and your private lesson teacher can find a position that's comfortable for you. This is the one that I recommend. So I'm going to start on the root of this scale is going to be F on the A string up here on the 8th fret, G 5th fret on the D string, A 7th fret on the D string, B flat 8th fret on the D string, C 5th fret on the G string, D 7th fret on the G string. Here's our lowered 7th E flat. It's going to be 8th fret on the G string, and then the root up at the top we're going to drop in with the 2nd finger on the 6th fret of your B string. So let's look at that scale slowly. F, G, A, B flat, C, D, important thing about this etude is the swing feel, right? We have to make sure that our eighth notes are swung and not even eighth notes. So what I would recommend is getting used to that feel and also just getting your hand comfortable in that scale pattern where we're going to be reading the notes in this melody by playing that scale with a swing feel. What I do is I use a metronome, but I set the metronome so that I'm only hearing beat 2 and beat 4. We want that backbeat to be emphasized. That'll really help you with the swing feel. And then just play that scale with the swung eighth notes. You can start at a slower tempo if you want and work your way up to this. This is 120 beats a minute. My metronome's set at 60, and I'm feeling this is 2 and 4. So I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's what that scale sounds like with the swing rhythm in this tempo. A 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. And I added the ninth so that that flowed nice. Do that one more time. And a 1, a 2, a 3, and. So that's where our melody position is going to be. There will be one shift in there, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. So let's start right at the beginning with the melody. The first note is C right here on the 5th fret of the G string in that hand position that we just took a look at. And it starts on an upbeat. It's on the second half of beat 3. So we're going to start that with an upstroke with the right hand. So the first 3 notes are going to be up, down, up. Then the next first full measure, count 2 on the D, is a downbeat. So we're going to be back to a downstroke there. But to keep the coordination of the swing feel, I would start this with an upstroke. So it would look like this, a 1, a 2, a 3. So that first phrase, make sure you see articulations. First full measure, beat 3. The C is marcato. The F, way down here on the A string, 8th fret. That's where your root is in this position, right? First phrase again, a 1, a 2, a 3. Then we continue on in measure 2. Back to your C. Long, short accent, right? So C, D, E flat is accented. Beat 4, your F up here on the 6th fret of your B string. Marcato again, right? So measure 2, let's look at that. Here's the only shift that I would make. We could play A flat and A, but that E string's got a little bit of a thin sound compared to everything else that we've played. So I would shift that up here to the 9th fret on the B string for your A flat. Little fatter sound, kind of wimpy, a little darker, right? And then your F is on the 10th fret right there. So that measure, measure 3, moving on, we have a dynamic change. Don't miss that in measure 5. We're back down to our regular position that we've played in, and the rest of the melody stays there. So we have D, C, then your marcato F down there, still within the dynamic context. D in measure 6, our hand's already in position. The D is right here on the 5th fret of your A string. Then similar to the beginning, right there on D, C, and E flat. Then we repeat, same as measure 5. Then we have a little chromatic lick in measure 10, C, C sharp, D, F, that's all in position. Then we comp chords. We took a look at those chords a little bit ago, so we'll put them in context in just a moment. Coming out of the section where we're comping chords, measure 14, still in that same position on the G string. E flat, C, D, C. Then we have a slide into the A flat. The A flat's going to be 6th fret on your D string, and and you can slide 1 fret or whatever you're comfortable with, as long as we get that slide in there. Right? And then we have chords for a couple bars, and then we kind of recap the beginning. Notice there is a slight change in articulation. So at the end of measure 16, right? And then same thing as measure 2. And then here we have what looks like a tricky lick, but it's all in this position. So we have F, upstroke F on the second half of count 1 in measure 19. That's all in position. F, E flat, D, C, F down there. G sharp, same place as our A flat a little earlier, right? That is 6th fret on the D string. Second finger's in position to play that note. Then A, the 3rd finger in the 7th fret, and then B flat, 4th finger on the 8th fret. Then I'm going to play the A flat back down here on the 6th fret with my 1st finger. And then we have our E flat 7 sharp 9 chord. And then make sure we count through that chord and release right on the rest in measure 22. And then for the F as the final stab here, I'm going to grab F on the 10th fret of the G string right up here. So I have some space to slide down. We could do it up here. We don't have as far to go, right? So I like this one up here on 10th fret. We've got a little more distance, and you can do that pretty quick. So I'm going to play through this at 2 different tempos. I'm going to go a little slower, and then I'm going to do it at tempo so you can practice it slow and then work your way up to performance speed. So here's wound up, slowed down to 90 beats a minute, so you can really work on style and consistency. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And here's wound up at the indicated tempo of 120 beats a minute. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.